Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Blizzard Watch podcast. I'm Matt. With me this week are not one, not two, but three fantastic people who are going to help us do this show and basically allow me to do as little as possible. First up is our special guest, Phil Ulrich. And I got his name right because I screwed it up in the pre-show. Hi, Phil.
Hi. Good job.
Next up is Joe Perez, who, if I don't know his name at this point, I don't know what we've been doing for the past... How long has it been, Joe?
Too long. We're not going to talk about it.
Has it been the full 10 years? No.
It is. But it is. It has been a good decade.
Anyway, now that Joe and I both stumble into the grave, I will then turn to Liz, and Liz is like, God, he's going to mention this again, but I'm not. This is Liz Harper. She's the IC of the site, and say hi to her, everybody.
Hello.
You can say hi to them too, yeah. Great. All right. We got news, so we should talk about it. The season 2 started last week, didn't it? Or is it this week? It's started
today.
Yeah,
season 2 is now live.
Yeah, last week was patch release, when the season usually starts a week or if it's particularly broken 2 weeks after that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So the raids are out now.
As of today.
Yeah. So we've got normal, heroic, and mythic plus LFR Wing 1. They're all out this week.
Yep.
So there's none of that, you have to wait an extra week for Mythic and then another week for LFR. And story mode's on the 11th, which is next week, right? It's next week as we're recording it.
Yes, next week.
Yes.
Probably as you're listening to this too.
Yep.
Sorry, I was going to say just real quick. I just want to make sure we also note that they will be following the weekly wing release for LFR like they did before. So every week a new wing will open up.
So this week, Wing 1 is open, next week, Wing 2, then Wing 3, then Wing 4. So they're coming out at a rapid pace, which I think is great.
Absolutely.
And so there's a note here that this means Race to World First starts right now. We're not going to have that extra week of people. Well, they'll probably still do it. They'll probably still run, normal and heroic to get set bonuses and stuff.
Oh, yes, they are.
Yeah, they're still doing heroic splits because there was enough of a item level jump this time that stuff
huge
you can get outside of a raid is better than Mythic raid gear from last year. So we just won't have a week where they're broadcasting themselves doing nothing but running splits, which was just thrilling times that happened.
I think you're being optimistic because day one has been all splits. It's just splits. More splits.
It's like Jean-Claude Van Damme showed up and doesn't know what's happening. So
we got one boss down.
Yeah, but it's a lot of people running normals and heroics. As we're recording this, we don't have the raid isn't open in Europe or Asia, so those folks are yet to jump in. And I really think I enjoy watching Race to World First. I have a lot of fun watching these players just go all out to get these bosses down as fast as possible. But I think I'm in for a little while of watching an endless chain of heroic splits. Hopefully not as many as in Sepulchre of the first ones, which was just, wow, we saw so many Anduin splits. Just days and days and days of just killing Anduin. So much.
I wonder if there were some Horde guilds involved. No, I'm kidding. So while we're talking about that, I guess Blizzard put out a little movie basically highlighting the creation of the raid, and it's got, from what I understand from reading the text here, it's got a high energy jazz soundtrack, which I think is much better than what I'm used to with raiding stuff, because usually it ends up being yakky sax
Can we take a moment to appreciate the music of this, like this release, like this patch?
It's amazing. It's amazing.
The music is on point. Like, I have not been able to get it out of my head. And this is, as somebody who I get made fun of sometimes in Guild for this, I never play with sound. And if I do play with sound, I almost always have the music off after like the first time of experiencing it. I've been playing with sound on, music on since this patch dropped. It is so good.
It's so different than what you expect from WoW. Like, you expect, here's a new town, we're going to have generic fantasy music. Maybe it's got, a kazoo in the background because goblins are wacky. And then, the usual, ominous music with Latin chanting in the raid. And there is none of that. Like, the music for the Gallywix fight specifically was data mined way ahead of time, and is nothing like any boss fight music we've had in this game, except maybe Bronjam and the Forge of Souls is like the closest thing.
Yeah.
That goes all the way down to Wrath. Like it is a high energy jazz track that actually shifts over the 4 phases of the fight. Like the bass becomes more intense, the instruments get a little more frenetic, for lack of a better word, over the course of the fight. And then that extends even out into Undermine, which just has kind of like a cool background jazzy soundtrack the whole time you're in it. It's not the normal Blizzard town music.
And it's different for each area of the town, and it's different based off of what you're doing. Yeah. So like if you're in your like Goblin Racer and you're going around, the music is different and the tempo is different. Like this is phenomenal. The only thing that they could do that would make me happier with this is if I got an NPC that I could hire to follow me around. That's a goblin with a saxophone named Saxamillion that I just pay to like play a personal theme whenever I enter a room. Blizzard, give this to me. I will shove money at the screen.
Okay, I'm going to have to say that whilst I'm on board with your idea of Saxamillion, he has to be a hobgoblin. He has to be shirtless and oiled up, and
with a flowing hair always in the wind.
Yes, and he also has to have various actors from the movie, like the Lost Boys movie, just doing voices around him, like Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland. Just they have to voice various NPCs who are there, just because it has to be that way. Yeah, I'm on board with the Saxamillion. I'm fine with that. That should happen.
Phil, real quick, going back to the places that have that level of music, the broker dungeon when you're in the club had that as well.
Yep. Also, I will add the jazz music now extends into delves. When you run into the Underpin, his theme song overrides the normal music.
Oh wow!
It makes me happy.
Yeah, they're batting 1,000 on that. Like I was exceptionally impressed with it. It makes me very, very happy. And like, yeah, everybody's excited about new like raid tier, new loot, new everything. Me, I'm like, no, this music is rad. I'm good. I'm content. Like this feeds my soul.
Well, and speaking of feeding people's souls, segues. My power is fast. New trading posts this month, and I basically there's text in here saying that we should not read through the list, and I get you because having me sit here and read a list is not necessarily the most fun, but I do think we got to talk about this theme: butterflies, lots and lots of butterflies and other insects, and it's like the mount alone, just the mounts you can get.
There are 2 mounts.
There's the pearlescent and ruby butterflies, 700 attendees apiece.
Bought them both immediately.
And the Shimmerist Free Runner. So, yeah, lots of mounts, and the butterflies are just gorgeous. They are real pretty.
Go ahead, Liz.
You have 2 butterfly variations here, and they're both great. One's kind of like an iridescent pastels with kind of pale golds, and the other one is kind of pink red with purple silver. So you've got butterfly wings with 2 seriously different vibes. And we're recording this on March 4th. The trading post opened on March 1st. I have already completed the entire series of trading post events for the month, and I have spent all of my trader's tender. It's all gone. I have no more.
Yeah, I'm rapidly behind
some
you.
Of these. Some of these were very cool. I looked at the Warglaives and went, maybe I should level my Demon Hunter again as a butterfly. This sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, I seriously do think that's a really good model. There's actually a bunch of models that are really good. Again, we don't want to like sit here and have me read off a whole list, but I will say that the glaives he's talking about, they are really, really nice. It's just straight up, just pretty. Really design, the wings you can get, the whole thing. There's a lot of really cool stuff here. And so I feel that's probably enough because we do have other things to talk about. But if I had the time and I thought you guys would actually stick around for it, I would read you everything that's coming out because that's who I am.
The TLDR is it's a very good set, very on theme for March. There's lots of really cool stuff. There's lots of cool stuff returning.
And it's whimsical.
It's very whimsical. It's very spring. Like after a long winter of I'm waving my hand in a gesture that you can't see because this is an audio medium. It's light and airy and just colorful, and I think that's really the important part. So enjoy, like get some cool stuff.
I do want to add one really important point about these things is that the shoulders you get for completing the Trader's Post for the month and the purple-pink variant of them that you can buy, when you put them on, you will have color-coordinated butterflies fluttering around you all the time. In case that was something you needed in your game experience, that is something you can get in this month's Trading Post.
In case, she says.
Just in case.
In case you needed this. So the world literally, I look out the window and the world is out there screaming and, fountains of blood and flames everywhere. And you're like, in case I needed colorful butterflies following me around. Okay. But anyway, now let's talk about the next thing on the list, which is that we've basically had Undermine for a week. How you guys feel about it? How are you guys enjoying Undermine so far? You probably haven't rated yet because today is Tuesday. So
that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So of the stuff you've seen and done, what highlights? Just throw some stuff at us. How do you like it? Is the car fun or does it make you seasick? Are you feeling the jazz? I think we've established that you're all feeling the jazz.
It's great.
I was on the fence of whether or not I was going to like the car. I'm going to be honest. Like I thought it was a really cool concept. They did a really good job, especially with the ability to make it slightly slower but have higher acceleration so that you can like adjust the speed a little bit, giving you a little bit of customization. I like it, and I like getting around the zone in it because I think it makes the zone is very well designed for it for the most part. There are a couple pockets where you're going to hit a wall and bounce off of it. This is inevitable. Just accept your fate. The head-on collision of a goblin vehicle is just inevitable. But I think it really is a lot of fun. I think they did a lot of good stuff with the NPCs. I think they did a lot of good job with the zones in general, like each area of the city. My only gripe is that I wish the zones had a bit more of a color palette swap between them because everything is very samey, which, okay, I can understand. We're in the Undermine. We're literal cavern underground. But it's one of those things where I look at it, it's like, I kind of wish like the downtown area was a little more neon. And I wish that I think the Chemical Works area is probably the best out of them as far as differentiating itself, but everything else is kind of like same color palette of grays and reds and stuff like. That's my only gripe with it whatsoever. Everything else phenomenal.
You're saying that in the expansion where they've put multiple zones underground and didn't make any of them look samey, they've created a zone that looks samey.
Not overly, but enough. Go ahead, Phil.
To its credit, it doesn't look like any of the other zones in Khazalgar.
Correct.
But yeah, Joe's right. It's got a very yellow, green, red color palette, and like the most you get is like you go to visit the Steam Weedle and you get really green because they've got a bunch of slime, or you go to the Heaps, the kind of venture company dark fused fared kind of area.
Very orangey rust.
It's very yellow.
Yeah.
It's like weirdly colored, but then like a lot of the rest of Hovel Hill, Venturewood, the center of town, they all look really alike. I do agree that is one thing that could have been improved. I'm okay with the car. I griped about the car a bit when it first came out. It felt kind of unnecessary to require to use the car to get around. I realized what I didn't really like was that first few days of Undermine when it had phenomenal amounts of lag. It was a sludgy mess to do anything. Driving was bad at that time. But like it like Joe said, the ability to lower your top speed right off the bat, like they don't make you go out and earn that or find it, like it's an option from the jump, is very good. I've recently acquired the ability to make the tires with engineering that increase your grip while drifting. I can now drift in a straight line, basically, which is phenomenal. Yeah, it's gotten better as I've gotten used to it. My knee-jerk reaction was that I didn't like it, but again, I think that was largely down to technical problems around Undermine. I think it's a really cool city. I've enjoyed the variety of activities that they had to do. Like, yeah, it's more weekly stuff to do, but none of it really feels like the stuff we already had in Khazalgar. It continues to be different. And you're running into... There are so many goblin NPCs that if there's a goblin NPC that you interacted with in a quest, outside of the Zeppelin lady in Orgrimmar who tries to invite you to the jungle with her, and also Boss Mita, I think you'll probably run into them somewhere in Undermine.
Oh, yeah, almost assuredly.
Including one from Season of Discovery, who would sell people their tier 1 and 2 sets for tarnished Undermine Real. you can still find a very old tarnished Undermine Real, and she's hanging out in the Port Authority now, and is like, I haven't seen one of these in ages. Let me give you a shirt. And basically, he trades you a shirt that's been in the game forever, data mined, but never actually released. It's a new purple shirt that I am wearing on my Warlock right now.
Okay. Unless anyone else has anything else to talk about that.
Well, Liz,
Liz, did you have something?
Yeah.
It's weird because I've actually spent more time out of Undermine than in Undermine, because Blizzard upped the level of rewards throughout the game and has upped the level of rewards for world quests. And I'm playing a character that is a new alt that's a little undergeared. So it's I've spent a lot of time doing that, and I've been trying to get through the Undermine story quest. I have to say, my very favorite thing about Undermine is, you're underground. You know what it's like. It's a giant cave full of goblins. But if you look up, someone has taken the time to make fluffy white clouds that are made of cardboard or something and hang them throughout the zone. I appreciate this attention to detail to making the Undermine a more friendly, livable place.
If you look up at night too, they also have little spotlights scattered among the clouds that they turn on as stars when it's nighttime.
Of course. Just like home.
Never let it be said that just because the goblins live in a cave, it doesn't have to feel home.
At least homey for them.
Yep.
But I want to move on now to talk about some WoW Classic stuff, specifically Season of Discovery, which is getting Phase 8, which they had said before they weren't going to do Phase 8. But they're doing it, and Phase 8 is supposedly going to be the last phase, and it's going to include the Scarlet Enclave raid. And if you're thinking, what's the Scarlet Enclave raid? It is a new raid, entirely new.
Yeah.
Being introduced in Season of Discovery. You get through Nexramas, and then there's more raid to come, and it's different raid than you've ever heard of. So that's happening, and I wanted to briefly throw that one out to you guys. How do you feel about them putting an entire new raid in Season of Discovery? We'll go with Joe first, I guess.
Surprised it took this long. Legitimately, we've talked about this before. It's become its own game. I'm A-okay with this. I'm surprised it took them this long to add a original raid to it. So, hey, thumbs up. People will enjoy it.
Okay, Liz?
Last phase, they did add Karazhan Crypts, which was a new dungeon. Of course, Karazhan Crypts have been in the game since the beginning, but it was never a dungeon. It was never even a place you were supposed to be able to get to. So they've started adding new content. Season of Discovery kind of has a bit of an identity crisis. It didn't know, okay, is this classic WoW? Is this WoW plus? Is that, it's been figuring itself out. And as it's gone, it's leaned more and more into original content. At first, it's tweaking things. You can get new abilities that might look like things you've seen in modern WoW or things other classes might usually have, but it's kept evolving over all this time. And that's, according to the developers, that feels like that's kind of why they wanted to do another phase. It's we've kept evolving. It's been really fun. And we decided we're going to keep going.
One of the things I find interesting about this is that the Scarlet Enclave is a 20-player raid, but you can bring up to 40 in. You can bring an old school WoW size raid, or you can go with 20, like they did in Zul'Gurub back in the day. And I'm interested to see how this plays out. How many guilds are going to be doing it in 20-player groups? How many are going to take the whole 40 in? The thing is, apparently neither the difficulty nor the loot rewards will scale. It's just that the same amount of stuff will drop, and it will be the same stuff. It's just that now you have 40 people trying to get instead of 20. Which I can see pros and cons on it. Pros, a lot easier to stomp something down if it's tuned for 20 people and you have twice as many. Con, I wanted that sword, but you gave it to her. So yay, more loot drama. But what little lore I know about this, have you guys, Phil, since you hadn't got to talk yet, have you heard anything about what exactly they're doing here? What the lore of this is? Any ideas?
I don't know a lot about the lore, but I do know where it's physically located and what it is. Also, I will say I think this is cool because this is kind of a natural progression. Karazhan Crypts is actually the second new dungeon in Season of Discovery, because they had Demon Fall Canyon out in the Blast Plant.
Oh yeah, you're right.
This is the same place that the Death Knights target in the old Death Knight starting scenario. It's that enclave. Yeah, it's out on the east end of the Plaguelands. You can actually like walk up to it now. There was nothing there on Classic. There was a big gate and it was closed. You can walk up to it on Season Discovery and you can see where the gate is, and there's an invisible wall that stops you from going any further. So it's people are guessing there's going to be like with Demonfall Canyon, you had to like have a trinket equipped to make the gate appear, and then you can walk in. Kind of a sort of a classic attunement light. People are guessing there's going to be something similar back there, but it's it's where the Scarlet Crusade were holding up out there on the east. Where
the boat that you get on and kill them with your own cannons, and
and where they eventually took off to Northrend to form the Scarlet Onslaught. So this is I guess would be since it almost seems like they're establishing that Season of Discovery is like the past of retail at this point, with NPCs and things appearing in retail and referring to things in Season of Discovery as the past. This seems like the Scarlet Enclave prior to Wrath. So I don't know a lot about why they're back there. I imagine we'll find out once we get into it. But there is an NPC right now who kind of leads you on a breadcrumb in that direction, but it drops off before you can get in right now. Leonid Bartholomew the Revered in...
Oh, hey, Leonid, I remember him.
Yeah, the undead guy who hangs out with the Argent Dawn out
the one undead guy.
Chapel.
Yeah, the one undead guy.
He's basically saying, we're allied with the Scarlets, but I don't trust them, and they're up to something shifty behind that wall. Why don't you go keep an eye on them? And like you go out there and you report on them, and then you come back, and he's like, "Yep, they sure are shifty. I'll look into it and get back to you." That's kind of where it ends right now before Phase 8 starts.
That's something I'm really excited to see them doing. I find myself wondering if we're going to see more of it in Season of Discovery. If we know that the Season of Discovery realms are staying up after this phase,
unlike wow, I'm blanking on what the last season was called.
Mastery.
Season of Mastery. When that ended, they rolled those characters into classic era servers. But this is going to stay a Season of Discovery, which I think is very cool because it means you can still jump into Season of Discovery. Like, leveling is super fast. There's a ton of content. There's a ton of content that is different from stuff in Classic. And you can go and experience all of that. It's not going away. It's going to stay there. And all of your characters will stay there to keep doing things or run alts or whatever you want. So that's cool.
All right. Anybody else want to say anything else about this before we move on? Okay. Diablo 4, I got 7 emails from Blizzard just on this. I think somebody knows I like treasure goblins because I've got so many emails telling me about the quote-unquote March of the Goblins. And meanwhile, we have the Gilded Sorry, is it Gilded or Guided? Yeah, it's Gilded. Gilded Goblin event from March 4th, which is today as we're filming. I'm recording, I guess. Filming. Go God cameras. Today as we're recording, and it goes to the 11th, which is next Tuesday. So
yeah, it's up for a week.
And Can I just read this bit because it's really 6 new types of treasure goblins, and they're staying after the event ends. Okay, go ahead, Liz.
I feel like Diablo 4 events are frequently very short. We had a week of Mother's Blessing, and now we're having a week of goblins. Though the goblins aren't going to stick around, but the event is going to end.
See, if they kept the event going longer, seasons might start to feel better.
Yeah.
And we can't have that.
Yeah, but the thing is, the event also has a reputation track that you can work through by, hunting down goblins. But it only lasts a week.
I was born for this.
It lasts a week, and it's like there's a lot happening out in the world, you guys. I got a raid night to attend. I've got stuff to do this week, and now I also need to make time to jump into Diablo 4 because this is a super limited time event. I'm feeling like some of these Diablo events are so short. It almost feels like it's not worth jumping in to do the event. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like, I have a few hours to play, but I'm not going to be able to get anywhere. I'm not going to be able to finish this renown track. Why bother?
Of how hard the renown track is, though, because remember the New Year one they did, where it was like super easy to get the renown up?
See, I did not feel like it was super easy to do the Lunar New Year one this year, even though they kind of made it easier, but it's like, I don't know. Events just feel a little too short. It makes for a kind of choppy experience. It feels like they're trying to run a lot of events. It feels like they're bringing back Mother's Blessing pretty frequently. But, we're jumping from event to event, and nothing sticks around long enough to really be able to dig into it. I mean, maybe they're just trying to keep people from getting bored, so there's a new something to do every week. But it's like, man, I don't know how I'm even going to make time to do this goblin stuff this week. And killing lots of treasure goblins, that is super up my alley.
It's basically the Diablo game mode I would wish existed. Like just one where I could just log in and be killing treasure goblins. Phil, you were trying to talk though, and I walked over you, so I want to say
Matt just wants Season of Goblins.
I would, yeah. They had one in Diablo 3, and I was super happy with it.
I really wish they would keep some of these events around for a longer time, because I barely remember that they're beginning, and by the time I remember they're beginning, they're over. And it's just, this is way too short for an event. Like I get maybe they're also trying not to step too heavily on the toes of their seasonal events, but most of them are the seasonal gameplay. But most of them play nicely together. Let your events run for 2 weeks, guys. It's not bad.
Yes, I agree. Anybody else before you move on to the next bit?
Well, we should probably say what the different goblins are, because there are a lot of new goblins out there, and they've basically completely stolen all of them from Diablo 3. Which I don't really object to that, because Diablo 3 was great. And over time, we've seen Diablo 4 picking up more things from Diablo 3 to the game's improvement, I feel.
Yeah, but I do think that you're right, though. I mean, we've got the odious Ector, who is basically like an ectoplasmic treasure goblin, similar to the Ooze ones. We got the Gilded Baron, who is just full of gold. Go ahead, Liz.
Each goblin will drop, different types of stuff. So the odious Ector will be dropping crafting materials and obdicite. So to help you masterwork, to help you make stuff. That's the one you want to look for. But I mean, frankly, if I see a treasure goblin of any appearance or color, I'm going to run after it and kill it.
Yep. I also want to just read some of the names here, because the Glittering Pyrim, or Prim. I'm not sure if that's Prim or Pyrim, because it's an R and a Y, but sometimes things pronounce weird. But that's a goblin that is, made out of gems, essentially. It's got runes and tributes and all sorts of stuff. It's really cool. But then there's the one I like the most is just the Curious Merle. And Merle is spelled M-U-R-L. And, I mean, I'm getting heavy Murloc vibes off this thing. Just going to say it. And then we've got the Gelatinous Cyrus. Again, very similar to the old Uzi deal. This one, I think it even drops. It drops a legendary item and an increased chance of dropping additional legendary items at higher torment tiers, gold, boss summoning materials, and a chance for an elixir. And then there's the Fancy Old Fedric, who's a goblin, which looks like he's wearing a big hat. I can't tell from this image.
He is the rarest type of treasure goblin, because he will drop a mythic unique and a resplendent spark. Which is that's a big deal. And then if you see,
go ahead.
If you see a goblin in a hat, you drop everything. You want to kill that goblin even more than you usually want to kill a treasure goblin.
Yeah, so let the hate flow through you. Just charge this thing and kill it. Do whatever it takes. You have to have small children come in and play for you. I don't care, but kill him. But yeah, there's ranks for rewards and all that stuff too. We already talked about the rep thing. So yeah, lots of goblins. I'm perfectly happy about this. I like goblins specifically to kill them, which doesn't really sound like I like them, but no, I really do. But it's a video game thing. So also, however, this week, as we're recording, it'll probably have just happened. We're going to get a campfire chat to talk about the mid-season patch and what's going on with that. Since they haven't done it yet, that's about all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be on Friday, so probably about the time you hear this, it will be happening. And we'll probably get a new PTR. We'll probably get we'll be getting stuff. We'll talk more about it next week.
Yes, when we know what it is.
Yeah.
Since unfortunately, we don't actually have a chronovisor. We can't look into it and go, aha, that's what it's going to be. But Diablo 2's got its latter season resetting for season 10. That's going to be March 7th in the US. So March 8th in some parts of the EU and so forth. Yeah. It's literally all happening at the same time. releasing globally, so that'll be happening. So that's it for Diablo 2, really. I mean, anything else you guys have to say about Diablo 2 getting its season, or is we just does that solve it?
Diablo 2 is kind of on rails right now. You know, they do their seasonal reset, and then they do another season reset. At the very beginning of Diablo 2 Resurrected, they would add things with seasons, and they've kind of given up on that. It's just a ladder season reset.
Okay. We got some other games to talk about really fast. We don't have to hurry. First of the BAFTA award, I wanted to mention because it interests me that we've got Evolving Game, and the nominations for Evolving Game, according to this, include Diablo 4, World of Warcraft, Vampire Survivors, No Man's Sky, Final Fantasy XIV, and Sea of Thieves. And I just find that this an interesting concept for BAFTA because it kind of is. It's acknowledging the fact that gaming has kind of changed, where there are games now that just keep going and keep changing and keep adding stuff. I think of some games that should be on this list, quite frankly, that didn't make it.
I was going to say, like, that's my only gripe with this. Like, I really like the idea of it, but like, I'm looking at this, and as much as I love World of Warcraft, and I love World of Warcraft, it's an MMO. It doesn't need to be on this list. Final Fantasy XIV had probably one of the biggest comeback stories of all time, but it's been so long that I don't know that it should even be on this list anymore. And like, there are like No Man's Sky, kind of in the same category, but like, why isn't Cyberpunk on here? Is it because it's no longer in development? Is that the criteria for it? Like, I'm asking you because I don't know if they mentioned anything about that.
I do not know anything, but I would assume this is. I would assume this is for evolving over the past year. Would be my assumption, or evolving over 2024. But
did World of Warcraft really evolve over 2024? Did Sea of Thieves really evolve over 2024? Did Final Fantasy 14? Like, that's the thing that I'm having a hard time reconciling. Diablo 4, yeah, I could see where they've been working on it
Diablo
a little bit. But
out of everything on this list, Diablo 4 is the one I would throw in the trash. I think.
But go ahead, Phil. You were going to say something, but like I
would say evolution doesn't have to be positive. I don't know. I think I put D4. No shade to Vampire Survivors fans. I know you exist, but I think Vampire Survivors is the one I would absolutely not have on this list. Like, they had some DLC. Okay.
Vampire Survivors is one of those games that it has a niche and it fills that niche pretty well. But if you're not into that niche, then you don't want to be involved with it. I don't know how else to put it. The thing is, Sea of Thieves is one of those games where it's only evolved by virtue of being the pirate game that survived.
It's doing a good job at it. No Man's Sky really needs a BAFTA that's like the lifetime achievement for evolving your game. Because
I would agree with
that. They've taken it so far from where it started.
I think the problem is we don't have enough criteria to know what they're basing this off of, because like, it just feels like these are all just games that are existing, and congratulations, you've survived, and this is why you're in the running for it, because that's what it feels like. Like Matt said, congratulations, Sea of Thieves is the pirate game that lived, and he's right. But like,
and it's not its fault. It delivered a gameplay experience people wanted. It hasn't really changed that experience so much as it's just refined it by adding in new stuff. Yeah, but sometimes that's enough.
And Diablo 4 is one of those ones that like I really don't think should be on here, even as a constantly evolving game, because, and again, I love the expansion. We've talked about it. We have multiple podcasts on the expansion. It didn't do anything groundbreaking. It didn't really evolve the genre, and there are other games in that genre that are evolving it. Right? So I guess we don't know the criteria, and that irritates me. I don't like not knowing things.
Well, plus I will also say, in terms of Diablo 4, one of the things that seems weird about it being there is it is basically an MMO. It is you're online with other people. Yeah. You group with them. There's even a group finder now. It's basically an extremely solo-friendly MMO. If you're going to take a Diablo MMO property and put it on the evolving list, it should be Diablo Immortal.
I mean, do you know what also does that? Path of Exile. Path of Exile 2 is literally the same thing at this point when it comes to you go into a town, there's a ton of players, you can go do stuff, you can encounter it's a little less encounter people in the wild, but like it still has a very similar feel to, in my opinion, to Diablo 4, because the times that I've played Diablo 4, the only time I've ever encountered other players in the last entire time I played the expansion was when I was in a town. That's it. When the game first released, they were everywhere.
I don't know. I run into people when I play, but I think it's because I am a chaos magnet. Weird stuff happens. Go ahead, Liz.
I do wonder if is having a battle pass just enough to get you an evolving game thing, because that's what a lot of Diablo 4 feels like. It comes out with a new battle pass every month. Sorry, not every month, every 3 months. And
are you
it
sure?
does
Are there battle passes with the events too? Maybe.
No.
There are reputation tracks with the events. And it's every 3 months it gives out a little trickle of content. And I will say they've evolved gameplay quite a bit over the last year in ways that are positive, but in ways that feel like, okay, we're kind of getting to the stage of a game that we should have launched originally. Which that is good. That is positive, but I don't feel like the game has made it doesn't feel like it's developing a huge amount.
And I will say, Anna in chat has mentioned, just so we can correct this in real time, Sea of Thieves added a non-PvP-ish mode last year and did a major overhaul a few months ago, so it's allowed to be on this list. So that's okay.
And I am glad to see World of Warcraft on this list, because I know it's an MMO. It's designed to create ongoing content, but Blizzard has, over the past couple of years, really been knocking it out of the park as far as rolling out ongoing content. We are not having big gaps where there's nothing to do. If anything, we have too much to do because content rolls out very rapidly. We have a patch every 2 months, like clockwork, and each patch has something interesting to do. It's not like a patch is like, okay, here's 15 minutes of story and now you can run the battle pass. Patches have story, they have new game mechanics, they have new quests, they have new zones. There is something new and exciting to do every patch, and the World of Warcraft developers have been killing it. Whether you super enjoy the expansion or not, I don't think you can argue that they have been really good at getting out content on a schedule, so you always have something to do, and that there are regularly new things to do and new things to engage with. I think it's been doing a great job. I don't know if it's the winner on this list, but I think it's been doing a great job of ongoing content.
Yeah, the Blizzard of nowadays is the Blizzard that is finally hitting the cadence that they were saying they wanted to hit in Cataclysm.
Yeah, Cataclysm. How was that? How did that work out?
Well, I mean, Cataclysm itself is a whole thing, but I remember there were talks that they were talking, I want to say at BlizzCon, that the year Cataclysm was announced, that they wanted to hit a 2-year patch cadence, and they didn't want to have these big lulls in content. And then Mist of Pandaria happened, and so clearly they didn't. The end of Mist happened. Clearly they didn't get there. They got there eventually, but it's been within like the past two expansions. I said I don't know if they necessarily should win, but I do think they have changed how they produce the game, which maybe that's enough.
Again, I would love to know what the criteria is.
Yeah, no. Maybe they'll tell us at the BAFTAs.
But saying the last 2 expansions, that's kind of saying the last 3 years or so. 2 or 3 years. So they've developed a track record of continuing content at this point.
Okay. I'm going to move us on just because it is my job. I don't know anything about this, but maybe you guys will talk about it a lot, so I will have time to drink this liquid. Is Visual Novel Week on Steam with many excellent sales on fun narrative games, including I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. So go ahead, whoever wrote this in here, and talk about these things. Come on, one of you wrote this.
I'm assuming this was Liz because it wasn't me.
I wrote it, but I know you also have things to say about I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. I mean, I feel like visual novels kind of get maybe a bad rap in gaming because it's like,
which is
serious
shame.
Games. It is a shame. There are some great visual novels out there that tell great stories.
Not even within the gaming industry. Like it's been the running. I'm going to point the finger here at that KFC dating sim, which again was just kind of the joke. Ho ho ho! These weirdos will date the Colonel on their computer. We had a rather spirited discussion in
absolutely
Blizzard
did
Discord, where Rob Flanagan cracked a joke about there are visual novels that aren't just porn. and then people started signing in the morning to find 300 messages where we had listed good visual novels and visual novel-like games that should be checked out. Yeah, this is a and I'm not going to deny that those kind of games exist. I mean, if you log in, you'll probably get them recommended to you on Steam amongst the good ones. But like, it's a genre that gets a bad rap, and I think undeservedly so, because there is a lot of good, especially for people who like games with good storytelling. Like, this is the genre. It's literally telling you a story. it's good. This is good. And yes, we will once again plug I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, which is basically a visual novel with a light card game / card collecting element to give you some more gameplay in there. I'm also just going to flip real quick through here and point out that the Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy is again on sale as part of this event too. And surprise, those are visual novels. People with DSs may not have realized they were playing one.
It's kind of I have a severe love for like the Monster Prom series. Those are visual novels, and those that hill I will die on is that those are good games.
And you should. The Steins Gate series is on here. If you like weird time travel sci-fi stuff, there is a Steins Gate bundle along with a bunch of other games in that whole series. If you want, this is also visual novels are also one of the games, or one of the series where you are most likely to get games where you have female protagonists, where you have queer protagonists, where you have stories that don't center cis-het people and their stories. And like celebrating that, I think, is worth doing. And for that reason alone, visual novels, support them. Also, a lot of these are going to be indie developers. They're not going to be people who necessarily are working for, big corporations where they're going to grind out a visual novel and then get fired before, whether it makes billions of dollars or not. Like these are, some of them are. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of these
had to talk about that earlier today.
Yeah, a lot of these will be smaller developers. There are some that are free to play. There are, there's all kinds of games in this other than just, here's something horny to go into. Like, that's not all there is to it. And
heck, Dream Daddy.
I'll step off my soapbox now.
Dream Daddy is in this.
Yeah,
Dream Daddy, or as my wife calls it, the game that has a lot of me's in it for people, because there's a lot of hairy dudes that look a lot like me.
There's a lot of bears.
And that's not bad. It's a nice little dating sim. People get like so weird about these things too, because it's like you played all the Mass Effect games and you talk constantly about who you dated in that. That's a dating sim.
Yeah.
It's like the people that talk down on like romance novels as not being real literature.
Yeah, I guess.
I have been scrolling through these, and one of them is called A Summer with the Shiba Inu. And it is just all of the characters are dogs wearing like sweaters and things. Just they've like photoshopped human clothes onto these dogs. And I don't know what this is about. I don't know anything about it other than that. Man, I want to play it.
Yeah, and Joe mentioned, Monster Prom is right there. So that's a good
Monster Prom is right there.
Also, it's only $3 on sale. So
it's so good.
It's an easy.
What's really interesting too, guys, is I'm gonna kind of break the minds of a lot of people who loved this game. Disco Elysium. It's a virtual novel. It is not an RPG. There's practically no RPGing in it. It's a virtual novel. It is a story being told to you through the method of a game. That's what it is. So yeah, go ahead. Tell us how. Oh, we got another one for you. Torment: Tides of Numenera is a virtual novel. But that's the spiritual successor to Planescape Torment. I'm aware of that. And quite frankly, Planescape Torment is basically a virtual novel, even though that has the combat engine in it. It's not a game about fighting. It's a game about a story. So yeah, there's a lot more. Go ahead.
You can buy all of the Monster Prom games for $15.
Worth. And I will echo Anna in chat. Boyfriend Dungeon does also slap.
It does.
It slaps and it chops. It's
literally
a slap chop. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, we've talked about this, and that's good and proper. And now we should probably talk about the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 modders are going even crazier. We now have Tirisfal Glades in BG. Someone made Tirisfal Glades in Baldur's Gate.
You give people modding tools, and it's just fascinating to see where it'll go from there. Because it can go anywhere, and in this case, it's going to recreate World of Warcraft zones in Baldur's Gate 3 because you can. Don't ask why. There is no reason why. It's because you can do it.
Well, and the thing is, like, it's not just a mod. It's an entire campaign for Baldur's Gate 3. It's an entire RPG campaign located in Tirisfal Glades. Because, of course, it is.
Yeah,
I love
they've
modders.
they're currently working on somebody's working as a mod that does the actual Castle of Strahd, the original Castle of Strahd. I know for a fact there's some weird mods in Baldur's Gate 3 because I downloaded one that basically makes you a Kryptonian. You roll a human, you add this mod, now you're a Kryptonian. You fly, you can shoot lasers out of your eyes, you take practically no damage. It really changes the game. Like, they're like, you have to go over there through this monster and this darkness encrusted forest and find out the secret. And it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna fly over. It's not worth playing the game like this, because the game just becomes, very powerful stranger, just fixes everyone's problems. But it's still hilarious to fly, because the game does not have the rigging for that. Like, if you've ever used the flight spell in Baldur's Gate 3, the game does not really know what to do with it. So it's hilarious to fly places because you have the flight spell, but you don't land. You just stay in the air, and the game is just going, he's supposed to be why isn't he on the ground?
Oh, that's interesting, because the flying animation looks like it's like one slightly angled leg from just T-posing through the sky.
It is basically what you're doing, yeah. It is messed up.
And they're not just importing like that, like elements of stuff like that. They're also importing wholesale new like classes too, because the WoW Paladin is now a mod in Baldur's Gate 3. And
oh yeah.
Is far superior than the implementation of Paladin in Baldur's Gate 3. Just throwing it out there.
It's also a little bit better than the implementation of Paladin in World of Warcraft, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, modders have really taken the modding toolkit really, really far, and I'm really hoping that maybe, like, this was done without, I guess, the final version of whatever is coming in the final patch.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really hoping that maybe this is maybe we'll see some kind of even a third-party campaign creation tool, a la Neverwinter Nights. That would be a fantastic way to cap off Baldur's Gate 3.
Neverwinter Nights just got an official campaign in 2025.
What year is it?
Yeah, and they're getting another. They're currently. It's not even Beamdog doing it at this point. Beamdog is publishing it, but it's another company that's been making them. That they're having 2 campaigns come out. One's out right now, and another's coming out in a few months. And again, I'm going to repeat to you that it's 2025. COVID was 5 years ago.
No, that sounds fair.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, that's happening. We're getting more original Neverwinter Nights.
I do want to add Okay, I'm going backwards. Another great one on the Steam visual novel sale. Coffee Talk.
Yeah, Coffee Talk is real good.
It's basically a coffee shop sim where you make coffee for people and you talk, and the people are it's kind of a fantasy Seattle.
Yeah,
so
which is
Seattle.
Is Vampire Therapist on there? I know Liz talked about that one in a prior.
I do not see Vampire Therapist on sale, but it is another very strange game and visual novel. Chicken Police is on here, which is a noir drama where you are a chicken. I have some radar for finding games where you play bird detectives.
I was going to say
I know. I don't know.
Liz, have you ever played Hatoful Boyfriend?
I was just going to say,
I have.
Hatoful Boyfriend's on this list.
I have. I have indeed played Hatoful Boyfriend, and it is magnificent.
So
you should all play Hatoful Boyfriend.
Because of what Liz just did, my brain is trying desperately to force me to sing Karma Police, but with Chicken Detective in it instead, or Chicken Police. Chicken Police would peck this man. It's just no, I've made myself stop, but you still heard a couple seconds of it. I gotta move forward. Or otherwise we're gonna be stuck here.
That's the problem. Yep. We're gonna
we'll be here all day.
Anyway, I will also say really quickly, when we're talking about mods, I said last week, I've been playing Avowed. I've still been playing Avowed. One of the messed up and interesting things about Avowed is it already has mods. A lot of them.
I'm not surprised.
Not a lot of them compared to games that are, a year or two old, but it's got 50, 60 mods on Nexus mods alone. And a lot of them are just horrible, you can get stronger, you can get more active points or whatever.
That's always
one of them is a complete visual revision of the game.
Yeah.
That changes its entire graphical structure.
Same thing happened with Outer Worlds as soon as it released as well. There was a Nexus mod that did a complete visual overhaul of the game immediately. It was surprising.
All right. Well, so now we're going to move on. But first, Liz, usually you have the site news listed before the questions. Is that how you want to do this?
Yeah. This
So,
is a good time to talk
here
about
you
site
are.
news. Hello, listeners. I want to remind you that Blizzard Watch is made possible by our listeners and our supporters on Patreon. If you are able to support us, even if it's $1, even if it's $2, that really helps keep the site going. It's a whole community of listeners and readers that makes this site possible. We do try to keep the site up around $4,000 on Patreon. That's kind of what keeps us healthy and going. We've been hovering a little under that for a few months now. So if you are able to, please chip in. It really helps us. And I want to say thank you to Taylor, who chipped in at £3, which I'm not sure if that's quite enough to hit our $5 level, or if that's just our British version of our $3 level.
It's the British version of our $3 level.
And the math is not adding up for me there. But thank you, Taylor. I really appreciate you chipping in. For $3 a month, everyone can get early access to these podcasts, ad-free, and with our pre-show, where today Matt talked about Godzilla being a cat. I don't understand, but
It's
it was
true.
a thing that happened.
He's a big kitty.
Godzilla's a cat.
He's a big lizard kitty.
So there you go. One of the things we are working on right now is a redesign of the Blizzard Watch site that will hopefully make it easier for you to find things, including our latest podcast, which I hope, since you're here listening, you enjoy them. Hello, we're here. I would also like to remind you to subscribe to our Tavern Watch podcast feed if you are interested in tabletop games. We have been doing talk show style like this, where we cover the latest news as well as live play games. And next week, we will be publishing a new one called Triangle Agency, which was incredibly weird and incredibly fun. And I got to play the nicest vampire you ever did meet.
I am so proud of the intro that I did for that. Like, y'all need to listen to it just for that.
So, any help you can give us, we really appreciate it. $3 gets you all of these podcasts early and ad-free. $5 gets you an ad-free site experience, so you can read all of the latest news on blizzardwatch.com without ads, which I know ads are terrible, but they also help us keep the lights on, metaphorically. So please, if you can support us, go to patreon.com/blizzardwatch, chip in whatever you can, and if you can't, totally fine. Listen to our podcast, read the website at blizzardwatch.com. Like, share, subscribe, all of these things help. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you for reading that for us, Liz. Because I couldn't have done it. Joe, you're taking the reading of the questions this week. So
I am, and I'm starting with the one that I wanted to answer for like a couple weeks now, because this is big to me. This is from Memonth. Not counting Ashkandi, looking at Rossi, what weapon or armor or special something do you want to be able to put up in your WoW home? And on the opposite end, what would be the thing that you put up only to make your partner happy? I can tell you right now, mine is Rockdalar. Rockdalar is the greatest questing experience that I have ever had in an MMO, and I've played a lot of MMOs. And at the time, because I did it at level with the vanilla community, it was a really interesting experience that holds a special place in my heart, because it involved the entire server community, because you had to coordinate with other people to not poach somebody else's, or to keep the other faction from killing the thing so that you could actually get your stuff. Like, it was a community-wide event that people were constantly on Ventrilo and TeamSpeak, like coordinating so that every hunter on the server could get their special bow when they got the drop for it. I want to put that up in that house so badly as a reminder of just, I mean, honestly, it's the bow that I transmog my hunter's weapon into almost every single time, regardless of the armor set, because it's such a special weapon to me. I have never had an attachment to pixels as strong as that dang thing. And as far as putting something up to make my partner happy, it would probably be going back to the original dwarf totems, because them and I, that's when we first really started talking, was when dwarves were able to be shaman for the first time. And I actually still have the artwork that they made for me and sent me, which is literally just a ball of random stuff with my dwarf shaman inside of it and a whole bunch of totems rolling around inside of like Cataclysm. So like
it's like Super Monkey Ball, but with your
exactly,
shaman? Okay.
exactly. So like it holds a special place in my heart, and I think it would be a nice thing to have on display. So who's next? Don't be shy, Liz.
I mean, this is a hard one. I don't have an attachment like that to any specific thing in the game. Like gear wise, it's just, things catch my eye and they come and they go. So I'm not super drawn to something like that. One thing, I am playing a gnome again this season. And, my very first character in World of Warcraft was a gnome warlock. So I have a slight attachment there. I hope, maybe not immediately, but I hope at some point in the future we're going to have more options for houses. It's, at least the concept art we've seen has been, kind of, alliance-y and hoardy. I would love to have a gnome-style house with all of the weird gnome things and like a radar dish on the roof and just go all in on like your weird gnomish village kind of fantasy. So that's where I would put the style. I would not necessarily a specific thing, but kind of this flavor of being this character, this person that you have embodied over the years. And how do you take that and make that into a home that feels right for them?
All right, Phil.
I want to take the Demonology Warlock offhand from Legion and let him fly around the house instead of following me for a while. Babbling about how we're going to attack his former kin in this conflict. I'm like, oh, Falkill, you're so outdated, my dude. We're not in Legion anymore. He most recently randomly chose that line when we were pressuring goblins into attending a wedding. Undermine has some wild side quests. So it's just like, I just want to let the guy retire by floating around my house. He needs it.
And Matt.
Ash Condi. You don't own me. What answer do you want if you don't want Ash Condi? Why even ask me? But don't say Ash Condi. Well, then why bother?
Are you allowed to say the HD remaster of Ash Candy from the last?
No, my God, no.
I was gonna say. I think the intention wasn't that you're not allowed to have Ash Candy. I think the intention is that everybody knows you're already going to have Ash Candy. So what with Ash Candy would you put up?
Next?
I'll tell you exactly what with, because here's a little diversionary story from the olden days. I don't know, like if most WoW players remember this. The people here all do, I'm sure. But there was a period of time where the people, if you weren't raiding in vanilla WoW, the coolest armor you could get was Dungeon Set 1. And Dungeon Set 1 for Warriors was the Valor set. I had the Valor set because, I was seeing a lot of WoW, so I just ended up getting it. But they brought out, during a patch, they put out what they call tier point 0.5. And in the case of Warriors, it was essentially the best DPS set you could get before running Blackwing Lair and Encourage. Like, this was the set you got to run those raids. It was just better than the stuff in Molten Core. It was better than a lot of the Blackwing Lair stuff. Just the final end stuff, it wasn't better than, but a lot of the Blackwing Lair stuff was tank oriented. So you just have to get what you could. And I was the first person Alliance side on my server. I think it was at the time it was Azrael Nerub. I was the first person to get this, because I did all the quests and I had the keys to get into Upper Blackrock Spire and do all the stuff you needed to do to get this set. And it was very complicated. And I would have that. I still have that set in the bank on that character. Like, I've still got all of the heroism set. It's a slightly shinier version of Valor. It's prettier, but it's otherwise still basically just the Valor set. I have both of them because I went out and re-got, because the Valor pieces were consumed in the making of the heroism pieces. So I went out and then ground out Valor again, just so I would have it. I have both of them, and I would want to put them on dummies on either side of the Ashkandi display, which would also have Sulfuras and the Obsidian Edgeblade and a few other weapons I used during vanilla / classic, because to me the game is forever that period of time. Even as it's changed and other stuff's come out and there's plenty of looks I like better, in my little, my withered up little heart, I remember those raids. I remember learning how to tank a raid boss. I remember going into Blackwing Lair and fighting Nefarian and tanking with the warrior debuff. So that I had to I'm trying to keep aggro on him in fury all of a sudden, using a shield and a sword. And it's like, I got nothing. I have nothing I can do to keep him over here. Just all that. So that's what I would want to have. I would want to have a bunch of different stuff. Zinrock, not Zinrock, Jinrock, not Zinrock. Zinrock comes later. But Jinrock, the Obsidian Edge Blade, Destroyer's End, Sulfuras, Ashkandi, Kalimdor's Revenge. Those would all be in between those two sets of armor, because that's what I wore the most of the time in when I was playing in original World of Warcraft. Probably put the battle gear of Wrath up there too, because I tanked in that. I tanked a lot in that. I was constantly the guy wandering around with a gigantic axe blade on my head and 2 more on my shoulders, because that's the set I got. I don't think I got a single piece of tier 3. It just never got any. We were in Naxxramas, but there were so many people trying to get it, and multiple classes shared ways, the tokens to get it. And I just never saw any of it. I tanked that entire raid up to Saffron. Yeah. I tanked up to him, big Mr. Frozen Dragon himself, in Wrath. I never got the tier 3, so that would be what I would have. And as for my wife, I would have a bunch of skeletons of dinosaurs up, because there's skeletal Devilsaurs in WoW, and all of the skeletal Devilsaurs from the game. I would not have them as statues. They'd literally be alive, or in this case, undead. I just have them wandering around. That's it's for me too. I mean, ultimately, it's for me too. But it would also be for my wife, because she could then tame them and then have them. Just imagine her coming in, grabbing a Devilsaur, and then leaving. I was like, bring him back with his hat on. It was hard to get that hat. Yeah, that's my answer. I am done.
All right. We're at time, so I would normally do my outro here, but Liz kind of already did that. So I'm going to steal Matt's. I'm going to steal Matt's.
Go ahead. Do mine.
Because
do it better.
While you know about our Patreon, and we definitely thank you for supporting us there, if you can't support us monetarily, I do want to remind everybody that you can also support us by sharing our content, as well as liking the content on various platforms, leaving comments, sharing that content, whether from the streaming services, with your friends, and help us spread the word of our stuff if you happen to enjoy it. If you have questions that you do want us to answer on this podcast, or basically any of our many podcasts, or you just go ahead and send them into us. We want more of them. We would need more questions. And you can send those into podcast@blizzardwatch.com. I ask that you specify the show that it is for in the subject line, as well as any special pronunciations for your name. If you want to hit us up on Discord, we have 2 separate channels set aside. We have the Q and Podcast Questions channel, does what it says on the tin there. And we have another one set aside for our Patreon supporters as a way of saying thank you for helping us keep the lights on. We tend to look there first. It's the Patreon Q and Podcast Questions channel. Same rules apply. And if you want to make Liz do a little extra legwork, because Liz never has enough work, you can send us messages on Patreon, and her or Dan will retrieve them and get them to us and make sure that we have them ready to go. But yeah,
go ahead. I also this week passed on a question I saw in a YouTube comment to Joe, so I can't promise you that I'll see those in a timely fashion, but if I do, there you go.
Yeah, we want to look everywhere. We're giving you all the opportunity to engage. Give us questions, delicious piles of questions. All right. On that note, I'm going to pass it over to Matt.
Thank you, Joe. I'm glad that you did that. I don't know why I'm talking like this. I guess I was surprised. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks to both Joe and Liz for being here every week, and just keeping the show running and as good as it is. Thank you to Phil for yet again getting sucked into this madness and depravity we do every week. I apologize for you and your family. Yeah, that's it. This has been the Blizzard Watch podcast. You guys will be back next week. No, wait, that's us. We're going to be back next week. Hopefully you will be.
I hope so.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone will be back next week. Maybe we could get Corey and Liz on and we could just have a massive podcast, and Joe and I could just nap. We'll see what happens.
You're gonna put together an episode where all the special guests come on, and you guys can just take a break.
One day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.